There was one journey in my old Renault Zoe that I still remember years later because I genuinely wasn't sure I was going to make it. Today, I'm driving that exact same route just to see how much EV ownership has changed. So I've set off at 70%. If I looked on Zap Map, it usually says you need about 22 kilowatt hours to make this journey, which, for all the math boffins listening, yep, that's the entirety of the Zoe. So I think it had 24 kilowatt hours, but that was purely just sort of buffering, really, just to pad out and protect the battery. But effectively, you're talking about using all the range to get one way. And when there's not a lot of infrastructure around, that's when the old range anxiety kicks in. So of course I'm not going to be limited at all in the iX, but I do want to try and make it as somewhat realistic as possible. So I'm taking note of the range I started with, and I only really want to use 22 kilowatt hours. Now, back in the old days, I probably wouldn't be doing the national speed limit. I think it's probable I'd be doing 60, somewhere thereabouts, because there would be a good chance that I'd just use more range otherwise. Again, it was colder back then, so I should be okay. Today is 22 degrees. Another thing that's changed, you're seeing a lot more EVs on the road now, so you're not just that one person that everybody stares at when they see you driving at about the speed of a lorry. I say the speed limiter is useful when you come up to speed cameras, but unfortunately you still have to be wary of drivers who have totally forgotten that they're coming up. So I think this side of the journey between Nottingham and Sheffield, I never had an issue with. Even though there wasn't as many chargers as there are now, there was still more chargers on this side than there was on the Sheffield to Manchester side. So if I needed to charge up before really setting out, due to the fact that I was living in apartment blocks and you couldn't charge from home, that wasn't so much an issue. I could pretty much decide when and where I wanted to charge, and ideally I'd want to charge as late as I possibly could, just so that I didn't have to charge for so long at the next charger. Certainly, once the infrastructure's reliable, you only really need to charge for as long as you need to charge to get to the next charger, which is cheaper and saves time. But when you don't really have a big battery to begin with, you could potentially spend a lot of time at each charging stop, just so that you didn't have to worry about getting stuck somewhere. And while there would have been ways of being rescued, it was just the shame of it all. Okay, got 19 miles to go. We're at 60%, so we've used 10% of the battery. And I think having about 102 kilowatt hours of usable capacity, we've used at least just over half of what would be available on a 22 kilowatt hour Renault Zoe. So we would definitely be looking to charge as soon as we got to IKEA. We just have to see if it's available. Because as much as it was good that the relationship between Ecotricity and IKEA existed, it wasn't without its faults. Sure, wherever there was an IKEA, there's bound to be a charger, but where there's an IKEA, there are also IKEA customers, and IKEA customers park in the car park of IKEA right next to where the Ecotricity chargers live. And sometimes you could either get iced, or more annoyingly, you'd have electric car owners parking in the space, plugging in. Ecotricity would give you 15 minutes to get yourself together, and a lot of drivers probably took that to mean, oh, I'm going to get a full charge out of this for free, and they'd walk off. So that could potentially leave you with a bit of an issue. All right, so I made it. Never a doubt. And both chargers are free. So that's pretty good. I can imagine that would probably change come lunchtime. There might be more people stopping to charge. That being said, I think I can see just over there, there's a, yeah, you can just see it there. So that's probably capable of maybe 22 kilowatts, or at least 11, which is probably enough if someone's going to be spending a long time in IKEA. So they've got a double CCS charger, whereas before they would have only had one charger with multiple cables, but you could only ever really use one at a time. So the second bay was only ever there to wait. And the second charger, again, may have had something like Shademo or CCS or even AC, but again, you could only ever do it one at a time. So yeah, to get to IKEA Manchester is just over an hour away. Only 29 miles apparently, but you've got to factor in the hills and the drops. And if it's winter, that's going to consume a lot more energy. It's probably why I thought I could get away with it, but you do have to factor in that climb. Okay, on we go. It's now lunchtime, so traffic started to increase. Lovely jubbly. out here with 41% of the battery still left. There's the grid serve charger. Yeah, they've moved it since last I was here. Panicked me a bit because I just saw a blank space where the charger used to be. So that's probably for the best, to be fair. So what did I learn from recreating this journey? Well, first of all, yes, the BMW iX made this trip incredibly easy. But I don't actually think that's the biggest takeaway. When I first did this journey in my Renault Zoe, I was constantly thinking about whether I was going to charge, whether the charge would be working, whether it would be occupied, and whether I'd actually make it. Today, that just isn't something I found myself worrying about. Part of that is down to the larger battery, but it's also because charging infrastructure has improved massively. There are more chargers, they're faster, they're more reliable, and there is simply more options than there used to be. And I'd probably add one more thing. I've learnt a lot as an EV driver over the years. I know how to plan journeys better. I understand how weather and speed affect range. And that experience makes a difference too. Could I still do this journey in a smaller EV like the Zoe today? I actually think the answer is yes. You'd still need to stop and charge, but I don't think it would be anywhere near as stressful as it was back then. For me, that's the real takeaway. It's not just the cars have improved. The whole EV ownership experience has matured.